All right, welcome everybody. This is Bill Murphy with MMORPG.com. I'm here with Mike Bitton, the community manager of MMORPG, and we've also got a special treat for you. We have the team of Age of Conan Unchained from Funcom. I will go ahead and turn it over to them to let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Craig Morrison. I'm the game director and executive producer on Age of Conan, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the areas that we added to the game last year in the Savage Coast of Tehran adventure pack called Dead Man's Hand. And I'm here with the designer and writer who are responsible for that area, if they want to introduce themselves.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Lidia. I'm the gameplay designer for Dead Man's Hand.
I'm Joshua Deetch. I'm the lead writer on Age of Conan.
And what we'll be doing today is we'll kind of be taking a little tour through Dead Man's Hand and showing you a little bit about the gameplay and kind of, I guess, pulling back the veil a little of what goes on in the mind of a game designer when they're trying to create content for an MMO like Age of Conan. So
it's a bit different, isn't it? Because it's not exactly your everyday MMO. You can do some certain things that we won't really mention them, but they involve breasts. You can do some certain things that involve breasts that you can't normally do in another MMO.
Well, I mean, Age of Conan is it's the Conan license lends itself to a very different kind of more mature themes than you might see in other MMOs. It's one of our the most important parts of the game for us is being true to that license. Hyboria is a very kind of brutal, sexy, unforgiving world, and that's kind of everything that we've tried to kind of, I guess, get into every piece of content we make, is that you're very aware that you're in this very dangerous world, which of course is also capable of being very beautiful and very deceptively so. This area that we see at the beginning here is the city of Ardashir, which has all these kind of majestic vistas and kind of Persian-inspired influence. But where we're going to head to tonight is a pirate island called Dead Man's Hand, where you can, as you say, you will experience the seedier side of Hyboria, and we get to explore those very themes that you talked about, the kind of the more macabre and I guess darker side of Howard's Hyboria.
Yeah, kind of the Sin City of fantasy.
Well, and where are we at right now, so that players know how to get there if they've never been, or if they wanted to pick up their account again?
Yeah, this is the city of Ardashir, and Ardashir, you travel there from Stygia in the main game. You take a caravan who will take you here. It's open for players above level 50 and beyond. It was part of the adventure pack that we launched last year called the Savage Coast of Tehran, and so anyone who has that pack can travel from Stygia and come across and visit Ardashir, and there's a huge outdoor playfield as well as several instances of which Dead Man's Hand is one.
Okay.
And so I guess what we'll do is we'll head to Dead Man's Hand, and we'll give a little background about how the player comes to be here. They're working for a character called Artus, who fans of Conan will have seen in the movie that released last year, and our game is set 25 years after that. But Artus has risen to be the head of a pirate organization, but he was worried that someone is trying to usurp his control, and it's kind of that there's a power struggle going on, and he sent a scout to this island who's disappeared, and that's where the players kind of take it up.
Yep.
And now this is a mostly solo area, right? It's like a solo dungeon, solo playfield?
Yeah, this is kind of the approach we kind of took here, was that we wanted to do something different. It is a solo daily instance, and it scales with the player's level. So any player above level 50 can come and do this content, and it will be an appropriate challenge for their level. And usually when we've done these in the past, and when you see other games do these kind of daily repeatable tasks, they tend to either be very linear dungeon experiences or simple quests. And what we tried to do with Dead Man's Hand was make it a more open, almost like a mini quest hub.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so where Lydia's heading now is there's basically 3 characters that might be, that Artus suspects, but the player first has to kind of sneak around a bit and try and find out what might have happened to the scout.
Yep, so you find the scout in the tavern here, and this is what pretty much triggers a whole section of interrogations that you have to go do. So basically you find the scout.
And he's come to a very grim end, stuck in this rum barrel.
Yes.
Is he pickled?
Pickled pirate, yes. I think a character even mentions that. There should be a song called The Pickled Pirate or something.
Yeah.
It's like something Mo would have in his bar on The Simpsons.
And so, the first part of this quest is actually taking place in the local brothel. Because one of the first characters is kind of the head whore, as it were. I guess.
Yes, Vyaspara is a really interesting character. She's kind of the prostitute madam of the island, very experienced. She's also a formidable sorceress, and as far as making her scary, the best tool you have is not necessarily the character's dialogue, but other people's dialogue, and everyone has kind of a story about her, whether they think she's fornicating with sharks or casting spells or rumors like that.
With sharks?
Yes, well, that's the rumor. I can't confirm.
Okay.
Exactly. And so basically you're interrogating all these people here, and this will send you to interrogate Vyaspara, which is up there. And the first thing that she will do, obviously, is deny her involvement in anything that has to do with the pickled scout, and blame it on somebody else. And so this is how the main quest sort of starts. So this is Vyaspara right here.
And it's kind of cool, this kind of, it's like we said at the beginning, it's all those areas of mythos and lore within Howard Cyboria that we can really play with that you probably couldn't get away with in many other games. Whereas in this license it's practically encouraged. So guys like Josh have a great job of being able to write pirate dialogue.
Yeah, I've tried to stretch the limits sometimes. I've never really been shut down as far as the content I've come up with.
See, and I've seen that some of Josh's other writing on his webpage, and I know that he's not afraid to go that dark route.
No.
And it's perfect. It's the right kind of fit for this license for Conan, because you've really got that kind of dark underside to Hyboria that we really try and bring through in all of the content, and have fun with these quests. While also providing, the kind of the content that players need and expect to experience in an MMO.
Is it modeled a little bit after Tortage then? I'm sorry if you already said that, but it seems like that kind of direction.
There's some echoes of Tortage. It's kind of like Tortage's older, more brutal, brooding sibling. Tortage is kind of like, it had some themes that were kind of Caribbean.
It's kind of like Six Flags to Spring Break.
Yeah.
For those players that haven't played Age of Conan before, Tortage is the beginning of the game. It's where you start off. It's like the newbie zone, as it were. But it's a very scripted and very cinematic. 20 levels or so.
Yes, the first 20 levels of the game. And so here you can see Lidia is taking her character through, and you're kind of going out to the first different area and get an idea of how large this island actually is. Because Dead Man's Hand is not a small, linear kind of restricted solo instance. It's a very large island with a lot of content, and we really wanted to give the players that idea that this is actually an expansive area where they can explore. And here she's heading out to try and speak to the next accused.
Exactly.
Now, normally all these guys would aggro the heck out of you, right?
We're actually not at this stage, I guess.
Okay.
Basically, to be able to see more of this, I'm cloaked, so nobody can attack me. This is why they're not hostile towards me.
But actually, the first time you visit the island, before you've done any of the quests, a lot of these, if you just want to explore, a lot of these NPCs actually aren't aggressive towards you because you haven't started the quest line that triggers their suspicion.
At this point in the mystery, you don't necessarily know who you're after just yet.
Exactly. There's no point in having hostility towards you because I guess you're there as Artis's eyes, and so people see you as not a threat so far.
Mm-hmm.
But then that changes as you go through the course of and you start to meet the three different characters. And I guess you guys took a different approach when you were designing all three of the different boss encounters.
There are three very different personalities. We just saw Quartermaster Drostin. He's a very kind of weaselly, sneaky guy. He'll talk nice to you and then stab you in the back. And what was interesting is writing these three characters with dialogue with the personality in mind, but then seeing it come out in the gameplay too. Drostin likes to run away and get other people to attack you. Viaspara likes to use magic. And a character we'll meet soon is much more direct, brutal character.
I'm actually going to go turn in the first part of the quest here at the Pigeon Post. Usually you're supposed to go back to Artis. Something cool that we sort of thought of, since this is so big and the quest is the main quest is very long, there was a possibility of having to go back out of the instance to Artis to report back to him. So instead of doing that, we implemented what's called the Pigeon Post, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm going there to turn in the quest, so you're pretty much just corresponding with Artis via post instead of having to zone out and zone back in.
So it's kind of the Hyborian Age equivalent of City of Heroes cell phones. You know, we get to, rather than having a cell phone, we can send a pigeon.
That's one thing that Josh couldn't write into the lore, I don't think.
No,
cell phones.
No.
But you know, we can. There was still the equivalent in the Dark Age, so away they go, and they can update the quest.
They can hold up a dead pigeon and go, "Damn it, my pigeon died."
Now, about how long is the whole experience here on this island? Just guesstimate.
I think that if you do all the quests, and there's more than 13 quests in here. So if you do all of these, the main quest and the final boss fight in the boat, it would take approximately 4 hours.
So
it's a good chunk of time.
Yeah, and of course the players don't have to do all 13, 14 quests in the same sitting, in one sitting, or even every day. This is a daily instance that resets. They could choose just to do the main quest or do one of the side quests. It very much depends what they feel like doing, or if they have 4 hours and they don't want to, worry about having other players or around or waiting for group content, they can just come in here and it's kind of like their own little private quest hub. And if this is the content they want to do, and with the adventure pack and all the recent content we've been adding, we've been trying to add multiple areas like this, whether it's a solo daily instance or a team one, so that the players have a variety, that they don't just feel like they have one set of things that they have to do as their kind of daily routine. I feel that, we kind of felt that when that happens in games, you get locked into something they feel they have to do, and then having maybe some options, and they don't have to do all of it, they can do some of it, or maybe they go to a different instance, and having these as they go all the way up through, adding more variety. The average player probably plays a couple of hours a night. They don't play 4, 5, 6 hours every night. So having that variety and number of quests allows us to give the player that variety when it comes to their daily routine. They don't have to feel that they I'm doing the same thing as I did yesterday, which is the same thing as I did before. They've got a kind of they've got an option.
So now they can come in, they can do the dungeons, they can do this, they can do that.
Yeah, and even within this, like Lidia said, there's 4 hours of gameplay. So one night they might only do 1 hour of it. Another night they could do all 4. It's really up to them.
Now, if they were to log out in the middle of it, would it still be there when they log back in, or would they have to start over again?
No, it'd still be there.
Okay, so it does stay with them. It's not like an instance that resets if you log out or anything.
No.
No, it's on the completion of the quest. The timers are linked to when you've completed the content.
So I've actually spoke with Drostin in the quest, and he pretty much just blamed it on Akalia, which is one of the other villains. As we said, she's like the really sort of bad. Can I say that?
Of course she's bad.
Yeah,
we're unchanged.
Yeah, so she's like the ruthless, really powerful villain in there, and so she basically, her main attacks when you fight her are basically nukes, like really strong ones, and most of them are so strong that you actually have to avoid them in your fighting strategy. So I'm gonna mount, and we're gonna go and see her. When Akalia got to this island, she set camp where there were savages, and pretty much pillaged all of them to take up their where they were staying. So, and the main tent where the boss is where she's staying now, and that's where we're going, in the swamps where the savages are.
And again, the savages here are kind of a throwback to the Picts in Tortage. So again, you kind of have that loop through from the beginning experience that the local indigenous population here is just as dangerous as the pirates that have taken up, except that these guys tend to like hanging their prey upside down from trees without a head.
They're like the Picts.
Yep.
And again, it kind of shows the breadth and scope of this island. It's a very large location, and you've got very different themes. So here now you're kind of deep in the swamps, this kind of the savages' homeland, where they've built on these kind of tree houses sticking out of the swamp. And it's a really large location with lots of content and lots of a kind of diverse ecology, from the sulphurous kind of plain that you saw before with the volcanic pits through to this kind of very dank and foreboding swamp where you fight through to find the final of the three bosses, who's kind of got her pirate stronghold hidden away amongst where the savages have lived up until now.
With a couple of guys with sticks who are going to fend off all those cannibal-like people.
Exactly. Well, that's Akalia's crew basically, and that's where she pillaged them all. So you're going to see dead savages all over the place, and she set her base here.
And this is actually one of the areas that we are also retooling in an update coming up in the summer. So with a lot of these scaling instances, where the instance is scaled from level 50 to level 80, it's effectively leveling content for players. And then with Age of Conan, when we have the alternate advancement system and the progression post max level, where the players gain in power at level 80, it means that for a fully kitted out experienced player, these instances are rather trivial for them to do at level 80. So what we're actually doing in the summer is making new versions of some of the scalable instances that we introduced last year, and actually making a maximum level version of them as well, so that the players can, those max level players, also still have a reason to do this content if they want to, and adding in.
So like a hardcore version of some sort.
Yeah, effectively, with a better reward that is more in tune with the type of rewards that the level 80 players want to experience. That make it worth their time.
That's cool.
They'll have played this content a couple of times, at least while they're leveling up and playing through. So we need to make sure it's worth their while with the rewards when we make the maximum level versions.
Absolutely.
Yep, so that's about the three villains. Now obviously if I would have fought Drosten, we're not showing any of the fights or anything because it would pretty much ruin it for people that want to play this, but basically once you're done having the introduction fight with Drosten, and then Akalia, you go back to Vayaspara and fight her too. And I'm saying these are introductory fights because you don't actually kill them, you decide to spare two, and Akalia spares you. And so the reason behind this is that you don't have enough proof to kill them, right? You don't know who the culprit is at this time. And eventually...
It's a murder mystery.
Exactly. Eventually, when you'll find the identity of the culprit, you'll get the one final boss fight.
And that actually changes every time that a player plays through, so it's not necessarily the same encounter they'll get at the end on subsequent playthroughs.
Exactly.
Oh, that's very cool. How many different options would there be then, like, roughly?
Well, there's three. There's three different suspects. So those three you're going to fight one of them on the boat, which is docked not so far from here.
And that's kind of the final, that's the final encounter in the main storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there are...
That's the boat right here.
Yeah, well, there's the boat on which the final confrontation will take place.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, is just the main quest line. As Lidia mentioned, there's also quite a few other quests, some of which really bring out the flavour of this area, including one I think that is Josh's favourite.
Yes, this is kind of our where the other one's kind of a conspiracy mystery. This is kind of a Seven style serial killer murder mystery.
Nice.
So you can see here, this poor unfortunate fellow has come to an untimely end.
Yeah, he's been fished from the sea. He's...
We just need that Law and Order sound effect.
The sound of justice.
Yeah.
And basically this quest line ties into one of the greater storylines that is told in the Rest Adventure Pack with
the Worshippers of Erlich.
The Worshippers of Erlich. And it's all about taking the mythos and kind of twisting it in an interesting way to kind of give the players a little background, even if they don't realise it, because there are some players who read quest text and are interested to various degrees, but we still think it's always worth the guys infusing the content with this consistency, that it all ties together for those who are observant enough to notice the content and read through the it'll kind of become apparent how it links to and this is the next.
Here's our next body.
Who seems to be missing a few limbs.
Oh, and there's a fish. That's good.
And you get to talk to a lot of people in this quest. One of the things I love about the murder mystery kind of things are the people you talk to and their little side sorted stories. And this island's very honeycombed with all kinds of weird little mini stories that characters have about themselves and how it relates to the mystery you're solving.
Yeah, like this guy had lots of fans.
A side question for you, Josh. As somebody that's writing all this lore and all these quests and things like that, does it ever get to you? I guess this is a general question. Ever get to you that there are people who are just like, skip, tell me where I need to go?
No, because I've even done that sometimes. Just don't tell me.
Well, you wrote it. You're allowed.
But no, because there's people that do, and that really makes it worthwhile enough. I saw on the forum some of the people who were solving some of the mysteries in the House of Crom dungeon we have really got in depth with just analyzing every little thing that was said, and that makes it worthwhile. It doesn't really bother me that there are people who just hit 111.
Yeah, there are different mentalities, I guess, amongst players who play MMOs, and people play them for different reasons. But I think it would be a sad day if, as developers, we kind of just always went to the lowest common denominator and went kind of, okay, these guys don't read the text, so no one would like to read it, so let's just not do it. It's kind of the opposite. You want to make the consistency of the world shine through, so that even those who wouldn't normally notice it might catch it occasionally, and then wonder what someone else is talking about. Because they're like, oh, maybe I will read the quest text next time.
Yeah, and that's probably what makes it okay for me. The bosses here don't tell me, just do less. Don't worry, no one reads it. They let me do some fun things with the story. If nothing else, to amuse myself and hopefully other people. And sometimes even we have quests that really incorporate the gameplay with what's being said. We don't necessarily shy away from that, thinking, well, some people might not read this.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the other body.
Yep.
My favorite one.
Oh, that's a good one.
So I don't know if you noticed the fish theme.
I'm liking this.
Yeah.
So it's Richard Dreyfuss that did it then.
Yes.
The quest is actually called Fishy Murders. This one.
And it just shows, it's what allows us to play with those. It's about capturing, like I said, the essence of Hyboria. I think it would be we would be doing a disservice to the license if we just treated it as gameplay.
Yeah.
With MMOs, we're as much creating worlds as we are, gameplay and pastime. And while the gameplay is always important, and the players need, I don't ever see the problem with us also creating this depth and these layers. They're there for the players to find that want to. It might not be everyone, it might even only be a small number, but the writers help create a believable world, which I think also helps the developers in a way. Because
Yeah,
it gives you more solid stuff. It gives you a more solid idea to work with.
Yeah, we kind of passed the ball around. Everyone had something to it, so there's lots of disciplines that aren't really related to mine. But when I see artwork, I get charged to write something. When someone reads something, oh, that's cool. Do this with that.
That's cool that you guys inspire each other then.
Yeah, I mean it's part of the process. So I think if you didn't have the writing and you didn't have the wish to create a believable world, then your gameplay would actually suffer in the end. Ultimately, it might not in the short term, but in the long term, you'd be left with a fairly, kind of a more vacant world that didn't really mean as much to people.
You wouldn't have the love.
Yeah. Just a macabre, very dark love.
Macabre, brutal love.
And so you can see, it's a large location, and if you bring up the map, you can actually see why it's called Dead Man's Hand. It's kind of roughly in the shape of a hand, and it's this. Like I said, this is reached from Ardashir, so there's a lot of real estate for the players to investigate and play through with. And we're looking forward to putting out the level 80 version of this area as well during the summer.
Now, players that I can't remember the rules behind it, but there is a way to create like an automatic 50, right? I can't remember.
Yes, that's correct. We've done that a couple of times down the year. Some players have more than one, just because various promotions or campaigns. But yeah, once you've reached level 50 once of your own accord in Age of Conan, you are automatically able to create another level 50 character. So if you want to try a different class and want to try something different, you can start straight away at level 50.
And that's when they can go to the Savage Coast of Tehran too, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And actually, when you upgrade, when people upgrade their accounts to get the Savage Coast, there's also a pack that's available as an upgrade that includes another level 50 upgrade as well.
Oh.
So if they want
so you can only do it once. You can't just keep doing it over and over and over.
No, you can't do it over and over. But I mean, some players have it once. They have it. Everyone gets it once, and then so say someone who upgrades with the special edition of the Savage Coast pack, they get an additional one, and so that they can try again and have another level 50 character to experiment with and get to see the content in Ardashir. But of course, this being leveling, anyone above level 50, regardless of their level, can play this content because it'll scale to their level.
Now where's Lidia going right now?
Right now we're back to the start. So we
Okay.
kind of come full circle, walked around the full breadth of the island, and we're kind of almost back to the start, back to the pigeon post and our dark
It's a
age
huge location.
Yes, it is. And I really like the art style and how the guys managed to get a very diverse location. You had those sulfuric pools in the rock basin, and the very dense and jungle-like swamp with the city and these white sandy beaches, kind of only foreshadowing the kind of very dark and ominous sky from the volcanoes. So it's a really nice location. I think one of the things that Age of Conan has always done well, and I'm incredibly proud of the team for, is the art and the visual design of the game. It's the artists, I really can't give them enough praise, because they really make this game a stunning representation of kind of Howard's world, and I can just wander. Whenever I'm doing reviews, I tend to get lost because I'm just off wandering, looking at the cool vistas. Even when there's it's just cool. You can easily get lost in these locations and just wander around with the in the engine, because it makes for some wonderful looking content. And of course, these adventure packs are something we're trying to do frequently. So we're currently working on the next one, which is scheduled for later in the year, which we'll be announcing the details of soon, I guess.
We can't tease our loyal viewers here with any details.
We can't tease with any details. We can tease with some teasing, though, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess especially story-wise, Josh, it's kind of a lot of the content we've been doing is kind of leading up to some of the creatures and the powers that will be at play in the next area.
Yeah, there's some things we set way before that'll come to a head.
You know, so we've been kind of playing, I guess, with the, you know, Howard was very close to Lovecraft, and there's some influences there, I guess, in the next.
Yeah, well, when I first got the job here a few years ago, I didn't know that Howard and Lovecraft were so close, and that was one of the things that was pointed out to me. And I was a huge Lovecraft fan. That was kind of my bridge, because I was more used to writing horror. And so once in a while, we push that connection a little more. Conan's world is loosely associated with the mythos, so we include some of those deities and beings. House of Crown pushes a lot of those themes, and we'll further do that.
So the lore fiends out there can take that as a, you know, and we can say that the area that we'll be looking at is kind of it borders one of the existing locations quite closely, but kind of goes into the darker side of things, I guess. The older side of things.
Yes.
The older side of things, okay.
The evils that have maybe been buried for some time. And it allows us, you know, the Conan, that like I said, the mythos and the kind of pulling different strands together, it really is a great license to work with, because there's so much potential in all the kind of, you know, the world that Howard said himself has these kind of these old gods kind of turn up, and these ancient evils. It's a little bit of a Conan cliche, you know, there's almost always an ancient evil of some description at the root cause of most of his problems, or rather their impact on the Hyborian world. But it really lets us pull in some cool stuff.
That brings up a good question. How does the interaction with the estate of Howard go? Like, how much leeway do they give you, and how much interaction do you guys have with them on a daily basis?
Most of Lovecraft's writing is public domain, and his mythos, he really, when he was alive, set out to turn it into a mythology. He encouraged people to write.
And in terms of the Howard writing, we work with Paradox Entertainment, who own the Conan property, and we work very closely with them. They get to see everything that we're doing, and we talk to them on an almost weekly basis. So they get to they have review on all of our content, and but we have a really good relationship. I don't think they've ever told us no. I can't recall.
I don't remember any stories.
I can't recall anything being, you know, them not liking, because I think they trust that we know the literature, and that we know we kind of, I guess, indoctrinate everyone who comes onto the team into the Howard literature, and the Dark Horse comics, the original books, the movies, the whole kind of plethora of Conan writing and world, from the core stuff, the Howard, even out to the pastiche writers and the other writers that have written Conan down the years. I think we do a really good job of kind of wanting to do right by the license, and that makes the relationship with Paradox very, very easy, because we work so closely with them that I honestly, in the 4 years or so working on the license, I don't recall them ever having too much of a problem with what we were doing. They're usually really supportive, and they help us and we help them, and it's not just us and them, it's also with the people from Dark Horse Comics, characters from the game have appeared in the comics, and we've taken some of the art stuff from the comic and used that in the game, and the Penguin books, and even the movie last year, The Savage Coast of Tehran, the pack itself actually features characters that we took from the movie and kind of imagined what they would be doing 25 years on.
Where are they now?
Where are they now? So that it's a really strong license team in that respect. The Paradox guys do a really good job of keeping everyone involved and knowing what's going on, and sharing scripts and sharing plans, so that everything is shared, and everyone in the license team knows what everyone else in the license team is up to.
What was it like when the movie was getting made, and I mean, how much interaction did you guys have with that?
We saw the scripts at various points, so that we could review and kind of, because we were tasked with the Savage Coast of Tron was a pack that launched in the same window as the movie, and even though the movie was Conan's origin story, so it was going back 20 odd years in the past from our game, so we couldn't really do a direct tie-in. So what we chose to do was kind of take these two, the central characters, specifically artists, and kind of like Josh said, where would he be 25 years on?
Yeah, and that gave us a little bit of room then if we were tying it directly into a plot line that might, change for all we do. And that just gave us some room because, taking 25 years in the future, we could kind of do what we want with them, and still have an echo back to the movie.
But so they shared production photographs and set photographs and stuff like that. So even when the movie was deeply under wraps and NDA, we were still able to get the visuals out, so our artists could start to work on, we released a whole pile of armor sets for the game's vanity system, so that the players can actually buy and wear a lot of the armor sets that were featured in the movie, and that wouldn't have been possible without the cooperation from Lionsgate. They did a really good job of allowing us to see material that most movie companies aren't comfortable letting out of their grasp until the movie is public. So we're really thankful to them because they were great partners, and we were able to produce some really cool looking armor sets that were perfect for the launch of the vanity system last year, whereby players can wear any armor that they want and it doesn't affect their staff wearing armor underneath.
So that's very cool. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, we've done most of the island, I guess. Do we want to open it up to some Q&A, and maybe if people ask something nicely, we can show them some other stuff from the game?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Can you guys actually see the chat too?
Yes, I can kind of see this. I can kind of see.
Well, we've got Famine, we've got Glenn Swan there, he'll help us out. We've got Mike, the community manager at MMO. So why don't we just go ahead and start asking questions in chat, guys, and we'll see what we can answer and what we can't. In the meantime, while they're firing questions off, or saying shark, 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 they want to see sharks.
Oh yeah, I love this. Yeah, instead of just having like some visible wall or text saying you're getting exhausted, you got this way of telling you that you've gone out too far.
Can we actually see that? I kind of want to see that. Does that make me sick?
No more than anyone else here.
I have to gym.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was one of the cool things, and like I said, it's about that It kind of goes back to that consistency that we talked about earlier. The guys didn't want to just put an invisible wall around the island. They were like, okay, but we can't let people swim into infinity. So what can we do? And I can't remember who it was that said, let's have a shark eat them. Yeah. But one of the designers or artists came up with the idea of let's have a shark eat them. And yes, if you go out too far to sea, the sharks recognize that dinner is coming. And
I didn't even know that feature was added till I stumbled on it and played. I was never so excited to die.
Oh, that was great.
So
let's do that again.
Well, depending on the angle, sometimes you see it underwater.
Yeah, sometimes you see it if you go underwater.
All right, guys, we have a couple of questions.
Shoot.
First one is from Astal. It says, are you actually going to introduce that you can choose between PvP/PvE playfields on all servers?
That's something we talked about at the end of the year last year, and it's something that we are working on from a tech point of view. It's what we call our single server technology. It will be single server is what the Dreamworld engine will work off of. It's currently in tech production. So ultimately, that's kind of the idea, but we haven't really decided exactly how we will allow that to happen, because we want to make sure that we consider everyone's point of view. I mean, the theory is that yes, the technology will could allow someone to say, I want to play with PvP players now, and hit a toggle, and then they will be grouped. Whenever they zone, they'll be grouped together with people that want to PvP with a PvP rule set. And then they could switch it and say, I want to play PvE, and the next time they zone, they would go into a PvE version of the playfield. Now, obviously, there's lots of kind of the fringe cases that you have to sort out with things like that. You know, the players can't use it to escape too easily because that just pisses off the PvP people. How is it exactly going to work? Which means that we haven't actually made final decisions there. The tech should be ready at some point during the summer. And then probably later in the year we'll make decisions as to how we want to use it. It's really some interesting technology, and I really want it, if it can do everything that the technology might be able to do. There's some really interesting applications, you know, even effectively allowing players to have their own private servers in a way that aren't really, but that players could play based on their own preferences. And maybe even allow players to define those preferences themselves and have people, like-minded people, play together in a kind of opt-in basis rather than having the old kind of arbitrary definition of once you pick a server, that's it and that's your community, of allowing players both to switch communities kind of on the fly and or also, you know, define their own. So there's a lot of possibilities there, and it kind of, the MMO geek in me gets excited because there's lots of possibilities, but there's also lots of technical boundaries that we have to fix first, and yeah, the coders have to do their part first so that we can actually start to test it and play with it.
Cool. We've got another one from Ditz Havoc. He wants to know if there's going to be any new gear, upcoming content.
Yes, is the answer to that, depending on your preference. The new raids, the next raid encounters in the Jade Citadel will be going live very, very shortly. They're finally we're in the last push there on Test Live, and that should go live within the next week or so, or 2 weeks. The producer will kill me if I say next week, but very shortly, the new raid will be going live, and that has new raid level loot for those players that want that. And then later in the summer we'll also have the trade skill revamp and update, and that brings with it quite a few new items and a lot of new stuff that players will be able to get. And then further beyond that, towards the end of the year, we will have the adventure pack, which will have a whole new set of armor and weapons, just as Savage Coast did. So yes, there'll be new stuff coming all the way through the year in the different updates, including some new bits and pieces that we'll squeeze in there when we do the level 80 versions of the instances.
Nice, sounds like lots of gear coming. And Mia CR wants to know if you guys are going to be doing any more promotional stuff. He wants to come back, but he wants to know if you're going to be doing a server merge or something to that effect.
We do campaigns all the time. It really depends on what campaigns attract different people. Every quarter or so, we'll generally do a reevaluation, which allows me. But of course, you know, the game is free to play, so people can come back anytime they like. In terms of coming back as a premium player, there's different offers available through the store that include game time, and so if you haven't got the expansions already, for example, there's some great bundles in the store where you can get 90 days of game time and the Savage Coast pack and some cool items like the Sand Demon pet and the armor set. So there's some really nice bundles in the store for people who want to come back and have some time bundled with that.
Cool. Tank and Spank 69 wants to know what the dead bird you get on Dead Man's Hand is from.
Lidia, what is the dead bird in Dead Man's Hand?
What could it be?
Yeah. Well, basically the dead bird there's a reason behind the dead bird, but it's actually something that you'll find out about afterwards, like later on and other stuff.
It might be another teaser for the next adventure. Keep the dead bird.
It might be.
That's what we're going to say. You want to keep hold of that dead bird.
Treasure that dead bird.
Yeah.
It's just Josh's way of making you keep dead things in your inventory.
Sorry.
Liquid Glue has a great question. He hasn't played the game in a while. What's new with the game? Why should he pick it back up?
Wow. Okay. That depends how far back you go. Obviously, quite a lot of people tried Conan at launch, and I think the struggles the game at the beginning are well documented. I think largely we've added absolute load of new content. You know, we now have 2 expansions where, you know, the Rise of the Godflayer was a full expansion. It added massive new playable areas, post level 80 progression, and for the last 3, you know, the immediate years after the launch of the game, we really tried and address all of those issues that players had with the game. Whether it was the content gaps, those are pretty much all now filled in. We released things like Emir's Pass and Tarantia Commons and Zibaluku and all these dungeons and areas. We added post level 80 progression through the alternate advancement system, so that players can also gain power once they're at max level and they're exploring in Kitai, without completely invalidating the old level 80 content. We've added guild renown, so that guilds have a purpose and goals, so that your guild can actually gain levels and gain access to new buildings for your city and new quests, and open up more options for your guild. New PvP minigames. We launched the College Level Seg, which is has larger teams and a bit of a larger area and different mechanics. Lots of new items. I mean, basically, the beauty of MMOs is that you're never done.
Vanity.
Yeah, the vanity
armor,
system,
which made me really excited. I love tweaking a character's appearance. And,
This is one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the vanity armor was something I'd wanted to get in for a long time. I introduced it when I was the game director in Anarchy Online, and when I took over on Conan, it was one of the first things I wanted, and the coders told me no for several years due to resource deadlines and stuff. And then eventually last year, with the launch of Unchained and Savage Coast, we got it in, because I think it's great to give players that sense of expression. You know, that you don't have to look like one art designer thought a ranger who's at level 80 should look like. It opens it up and allows you to create your own look and your own style, and that can be whatever you want.
Yeah, and if you want to be the bare-chested loincloth barbarian, you don't suffer on your stats.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can look like that kind of typical Conan, you know, the Frank Frazetta Conan.
Yeah.
You can look like that and actually be wearing plate armor. Because it has the stats that you want. So that was another really good addition. And moving forward in the summer, we're revamping the game's trade skill system, which I'm kind of an old school gamer at heart. So, you know, we've kind of taken our inspiration there more from Star Wars Galaxies and Diablo and kind of some of the older games. So I'm really looking forward to getting that in later in the summer. Good question, but a long one. I could probably talk about that all day.
Finally, for now, we have Nerdy and Nedby. They want to know they want some information on dual specking. When can we expect to see it? How will it work? Sort of thing.
Dual spec. Well, it's currently in progress with the coders. Effectively, we haven't quite exactly decided how the player will switch. It'll probably be. We are hoping that it will be open so that that outside of combat or outside of like a raid instance or a PvP, you'll be able to switch builds. We obviously don't want it to be exploitable, but want it to be as flexible as possible for the player, so that the player can switch between specs relatively easily, but also, like I said, not have it be exploitable. But effectively, it will allow you to have 2 different specs and be able to switch between them relatively easily. We want to put as few barriers in the way of that switch as possible, just bearing in mind that we don't want it. You know, we don't want players doing it mid-fight or in between stages in a raid encounter. But we do want players not to be inconvenienced, so that they don't, you know, that there's a high cost or it's not something that they do regularly. We do want it to be something that allows the players to switch and go, you know, I've got my PvP build and I've got my DPS build for raiding, or, you know, whatever definition their class kind of plays into, that they have that toggle that they can very easily switch between without too much hassle.
We do have 2 more. Ben Wolfheim wants to know, are there any plans to improve mini-games or add or improve any other PvP-related stuff?
Yeah, we're currently doing a lot of work on the system side of things, so there's a lot of PvP-centric changes that are coming over the summer, and the dual spec is actually part of that as well, to get more people into PvP because they can have a PvP build then. But also we're tweaking the sprinting and the stamina system, something the PvP people have wanted addressed for a long time. We're looking at the stealth system and tweaking and hopefully improving that to be more, you know, to be more and more effective in PvP, and, you know, not kind of as arbitrary as it might be today. And then in terms of content, yes, we are looking at, there was two or three things that were kind of on, we have been looking at. We will most likely add a minigame as part, either in parallel with or as part of the adventure pack. And we're still playing with the idea of world bosses. The feedback from the players was kind of mixed when we talked about that earlier in the year, and we kind of went back to the drawing board a bit. The players were obviously the PvP players were very worried that it would kind of be PvE content in a PvP wolf's clothing, and how that worked. And you know, that was always a risk, and it's always a problem with that type of content, of open world content. I mean, personally, I really like open world PvP content, and as a designer I'm challenged by the fact that it's very hard to get right. Mini games are kind of the safe bet, because they are easier to manage, and you can set the definition of the rules to make them fun and engaging and interesting for PvP players, but you don't really get that long-term dynamic kind of ebb and flow that an open world can generate if done right. But there are very few games that have pulled off open world conflict. You know, and even probably the best at it is obviously a game like EVE Online, but they're dealing with spaceships and space. They're not dealing with maps and territory. And you've really got to go back quite a bit in time with some of the older games like Dark Age of Camelot, where players really felt they enjoyed that open world content. And I did myself. You know, I played those games for quite a few years, and I would love to replicate that kind of stuff. It's one of the I think the thorniest challenges for MMO development is kind of how to pull off that open world PvP correctly without it being exploitable by the, you know, because players generally, it ends up getting gamed whether you like it or not, you know, because once you put rewards in there, the rewards become the motivation for the play rather than the experience itself. And if you don't put rewards, then a smaller hardcore of players like it and might take part, but you don't get that wide appeal because there isn't a reward. And you know, at this junction, MMO players are kind of programmed to, I want a reward for what I'm doing. And then once you add the rewards, it becomes about the reward, not necessarily the experience. So it's a very difficult balance, but I don't want to give up on it. It's one of those things, and I think, you know, the PvP players in Conan out there, you know, kind of decry sometimes that we haven't always got it right when we've done the outdoor open world content, and I fully agree. You know, the shrines didn't quite work the way we wanted them to, and even with the tweaks and pokes, it's still too open to being manipulated by agreement and things like that. So it's kind of one of the, I will keep pushing people to try and find a way to get it right eventually. It might take a while, I don't know. I might retire, so that might be on my tombstone. I don't know.
Someone take up the torch.
Yeah, because I love the dynamic nature that PvP like that can bring. But likewise, as you know, anyone who's followed our game and any other open world PvP game will attest, you know, there are all kinds of gameplay design challenges that get brought into pulling that off correctly.
Miami ACR wants to know if there are any more graphical features being released in the near or distant future.
That will depend a bit on the Dreamworld technology, guys. So our Dreamworld platform that the game is based on is developed centrally, and it supports all of our products. The Secret World, Age of Conan, and Anarchy Online is currently being ported to work on it. So that's not something I directly control. What we generally do is every X months or once a year or twice a year, we will integrate the new features that will add value, we feel will add value to the game that Dreamworld has designed, and that won't be any different in the future. Obviously the Dreamworld guys are very hard at work on the launch of the Secret World right now. Obviously it launches in June, so they're quite busy at the moment. So we're not looking at an integration in the very near future, but I would guess, you know, early next year we'll probably look at the tech again and see what we can bring across for Conan.
We got a number of similar questions on crafting from a couple of users. They want to know if you have any details on the crafting changes and what it means for high-tier crafting, for example, city building.
Well, city building is actually being completely divorced from the system. So city building will pretty much stay the same as it is, except that anyone within an organization with the relevant rank within a guild will be able to do it. So we've kind of divorced the city building from the crafting system in the revamp. And in terms of normal crafting in the revamp, there will be, there will be equivalency. So there will be high-end items that you can make in the new system, just as there were high-end items that you can make in the old one. And wherever possible, we'll be looking to find a new use for or a conversion of some of the old material, especially the rare stuff that players might have raided or gone to great lengths to get. We'll try and make sure that those have an equivalent. It won't be exactly the same use, but it will be, an equivalent use for something that they'll be able to use, something they'll be able to create in the new system with those items.
Any more coming?
Yeah, that's about it. All right, thanks everyone for your questions.
Sorry guys, one more. We'll just pick it out of there. When is news of the new adventure pack coming out? When will you news the news of the adventure pack?
Can I say soon, TM? I don't know. It's already in pre-production. We're already in production with it, and that really depends on the marketing schedules. But it will, it'll be soon. Like I said, we've teased a little bit about it this evening, but we will be announcing what it is and the name and location of the pack in the near future. But I can't say exactly when.
Looks like we got one more actually. You can take it. Ben Mark USBR7 wants to know if you plan on expanding the AA system with new or more AAs.
We've been talking about that with the designers over the last couple of weeks and last month. So is because the designers are currently doing the kind of archetype revamps and some of the classes. So the Priest of Mitra changes. There's a lot of changes for that class coming up in the next update, which launches soon. And so they have been looking at that, and some of them are being changed as part of the revamps. In terms of adding more, that's probably something we will look at kind of post this coming adventure pack. Because there's some cool stuff that we can't quite talk about in terms of character progression that is coming up with the adventure pack that the coders are working on, but it's a little too early to talk about that one just yet. But yes, it is being talked about and considered, so it's kind of it's on our plates, as it were.
Soon, TM again.
Looks like finally Ditz Havoc 1 wants to know, will old dungeons be made scalable so we can go back and enjoy them?
Whether they'll be made scalable or not, we're not sure, but we are, now that we've done 2 or 3 of the scalable dungeons, we've done the other way around, so some of the scalable dungeons have been made into max level versions for updates in the summer. The next step of that is to go back and look at some of the lower level dungeons and make maximum level versions of them. Making something scaling is quite a bit harder, but we're not discounting it. If there was a dungeon that players really wanted to see as part of the daily routines and as a scalable dungeon rather than one of the static ones, we would consider it. And really once we do these first 3 that are coming out during the summer, we started asking the players. I know we asked in the last development letter last month, for them to mention which of the dungeons they'd most want to see turned into a max level dungeon. And like that, I think, give us feedback, post on the forums. If there's a max level dungeon or a static dungeon that you'd really like to see made scalable, we can definitely look at it. Some of them are harder than others because the scripting might mean that it doesn't, you tend to design a scalable area quite differently to a static one because there's some limitations that come in when the mob has to scale. Bill's dog is heckling us now. It's telling us we're running out of time.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure that's in your offices.
The Funcom hounds, yes.
Craig's talking too much. They're coming to get him.
Yeah. Post on the forums, give us feedback, let us know if there's one of those static locations that you would like to see considered to be made into a scalable dungeon.
Alright, that was definitely it. Thanks everyone for coming, and Thanks for your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, this has been a presentation of MMORPG.com. You can follow us at twitch.tv/MMORPGcom without the dot. So you'll always be able to get notified whenever we have cool new streams with like the folks from Funcom right here. And I want to thank you, Craig and Lydia and Josh, for taking the time out to tour Dead Man Hands with us and to show us everything about the island and answer all these questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks a lot, guys, and stay tuned to the website too. We'll have it up there shortly for those of you who came in late or missed it entirely.